Good morning. Welcome to Daily Devotions with your pastor in the Northwoods, Stephen Jellin, the Family Worship Center. It's good to have you with me today on a Monday, February 3rd, 2025, the year of the Lord's favor. It is the year of the Lord's favor. If you're like me, you got your coffee, and to be honest, this is more of I'm like you, because I am still in my first year of drinking coffee. Because I used to drink this for coffee. And you can only do that for so long before your body's like, no, you're not a kid anymore. Oh yeah, so let's just jump right into it. Thank you for joining. Another daily devotion. We're going to be looking at Hebrews 4:16 this morning. Let us approach God's throne of grace. Let us approach God's throne of grace with confidence so that we may receive mercy and find grace to help us in our time of need. Very encouraging verse. I think this verse off the get-go, you're just like, wow, I feel encouraged. But there's some really important portions of this scripture, especially with the intentionality of the language. The idea of approaching God's throne with confidence. It's a very, very what's the word I'm looking for? Very radical teaching when Paul penned this to the Romans, okay? And we'll go over the history here in a little bit. So I'm going to click the read full chapter. We'll explore here. All right. Verse 16 comes at the end of talking about a portion of scripture about Jesus, the great high priest, and our context verses are 14 and 15, right? And I was about to get into the context, which includes the high priest, the context of the high priest. But we're going to read 14, 15, and then we'll dig in. Therefore, since we have a great high priest who has ascended into heaven, so that's where the great high priest is, Jesus, the Son of God, let us hold firmly to the faith we profess. For we do not have a high priest who is unable to empathize with our weaknesses, but we have one who has been tempted in every way, just as we are, yet he did not sin. So let us then approach God's throne of grace with confidence, so that we may receive mercy and find grace to help us in our time of need. Much of human history up to this point, you had the priest, the high priest, and what was his job? His job was to go into the most holy place of the temple, right? And then he would go in. Just him. Anyone else, they'd be struck down. If they were unclean, struck down. If there was just a lot of things, so there was a huge preparation period, cleansing period, cleaning period. There was just so much that they had to do, the sacrificing, the blood, you name it, okay? And they would go in and do that. All right, and it was not only was it a process, but it was, I can imagine, anxiety feeling. Not like anxiety like the sin of anxiety or anything like that. Just like, if you're gonna go play a basketball game, you always have that little knot in you before you get out on the court and you start playing. It's like, I can imagine, it's like, all right, we got to do this, right? We're getting ready for it. We prepped for it all week. We prepped for it all day. Now it's time to do it. And so that's kind of like the idea. So everyone knows this. Like you're just a humble shepherd. You're just a carpenter, a brick mason, whatever that is. That's just your job throughout the year, and you just know that once a year you'd come in and bring your sacrifice, and the priest would carry that sacrifice in and do the atonement, and then you'd be covered. So like your part was to bring it to the priest, and he would go do it, right? He would do it because he's trained, because he's called to it, you name it, whatever. So Jesus dies on the cross, right? He resurrects from the dead 3 days later. We now have access. The veil was torn, right? That veil, it says, that was torn was the barrier to the most holy place. And the significance meaning now everyone has access to it at any time. So this is that new concept, that radical concept that you no longer have to have anxiety or preparation or any kind of qualification or it's like all that stuff is now gone, right? And the reason it's gone is because we have a great high priest, right? Jesus, Son of God, right? Is it there? And the reason he's the great high priest, he's able, I'll say able to empathize, where it says who is unable to empathize with our weaknesses. Sorry, do not. There's a couple double negatives in here, all right? For we do not have a high priest that is unable to empathize. He is able to empathize with our weaknesses. Why? Because he was tempted every way just as we were, yet he did not sin. So he's a great high priest. He qualified. He's awesome. He tore the veil. And so now Paul's teaching. I keep saying Paul because I'm used to that. We actually don't, and this is a side note, we don't know who wrote Hebrews, by the way. The author's still unknown. Some scholars say it's Paul. Some say it isn't. We don't know. And there's some things that I'm like, oh, that's kind of like Paul. And then there's some others like Paul never did that in any of his other letters. So they're really, like, honestly, the needle's not really shifting any which way. I know some people will probably message me and be like, it's totally Paul. And then someone will be like, you're right, it's not Paul. You know, I don't know. I say Paul because I'm used to it. I just want to make that quick amendment. We don't know who the author of Hebrews is. All right? So just a quick side note there. I'm going to bring it back in. So anyway, the author of Hebrews is trying to get this idea across that we have a high priest, a great high priest. His name is Jesus. He lived a perfect life. He tore the veil. And now, because of that, don't need no high priests anymore, because we're all called to be priests. In fact, if you read more of Hebrews, it talks about how we are all called to priesthood now, because we all have access to the most holy place. That's literally why. You have access to the most holy. So, here's that radical concept. Approach God's throne with confidence. That was not... You could die if you went to the most holy place. Like, you could, if you messed up one thing, if you had one hidden sin, if you, I don't know, you just were lackadaisical in your preparation, I don't know. There was no confidence. But now we do. It's not heretical it's not disrespectful to the Lord. It's not false teaching. It's not to pray in a way that you have confidence that you're going to meet the God who's there. It's a throne of grace. I think that's such an important point, this throne of grace, because we all need it. We all need grace. And the throne that he sits upon is grace, so that we may receive mercy and find grace, right? We're looking, we'll find it, to help us in our time of need. My word for you today comes straight out of Hebrews chapter 4, verse 16. Be confident. Be confident in your time of need that you can go before God, who's seated on the throne of grace, and you can receive it. Be confident on a Monday. I hope you have a confident week, just knowing that you can go before the throne. All right. It's your daily devotion with me, Stephen, your pastor of the Northwoods Family Worship Center. Hope you all have a wonderful day, wonderful week, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye. Love you.